This next book is Sicker in the Head by Judd Apatow. And this is actually the sequel to Sick in the Head by Judd Apatow. You probably recognize the name. He's real famous. He's done a lot of movies, directed a lot. He's worked in comedy his whole life. He started out when he was young interviewing comedians, and now he obviously directs and produces a lot of really funny movies. And this is just a book of him sitting down with funny people, interesting people. Roger Daltrey's in here too. He's not a comedian, but everybody else is pretty much everybody else is a comedian in this book. And they're just hanging out, talking. It was written during the pandemic is when he worked on this, when people had some time and everyone was home. And I'm just going to read a couple of little excerpts. I want to start with Nathan Fielder here, who did that show, Nathan for You. And yeah, let's just get it going. Page 298, we'll start with the Nathan Fielder interview. What makes you laugh? I laugh a lot when I'm uncomfortable, and I put a high value on comedy that gets me to laugh out loud when I'm sitting alone. Even though we had stuff we planned or wanted to do on Nathan for You, we were always chasing the unquantifiable moments that would emotionally make you laugh, and you don't know why. Those moments are so hard to find. I don't get that feeling with scripted things as much. You have to do a bunch of stuff and just hope they happen. I'm not really trying to make any political statement or trying to provoke in that way. Are the people who end up on your show generally happy with how they're presented? We've actually never had anyone who, after the show aired, has come back and been like, "You guys tricked me," or "I'm upset with how this went." Their main worry is how they're going to be portrayed, but we've actually edited out the hateful stuff people have said because we don't want the audience to hate them. When I watched the show, what I tuned into the most is the loneliness. There's a lot of material that feels like it's about your character's loneliness or people trying to reach out and connect. So, underneath the laughs is something that's really powerful. You're captivated by it because deep down you hope they don't go bankrupt or fail in some way. The recession of 2008 was the first economic collapse I'd experienced in my lifetime. My parents had been through something like it before, but I really thought the world was going to end. I read so much about the housing crisis, and I came to the conclusion that running a successful business is about finding that legal loophole that no one has patched up yet and exploiting that for profit. When that loophole gets patched up, they'll find the new one. It made you feel like anyone who's not at these big companies that are doing this really have no chance because they don't know how to do it, or they're put in a place where they have no ability to win. No matter what, there are so many confusing messages, and people are telling you, "Here, you can do this, here's the loan." Everything was based around tricking people. So when I met these business owners, I felt that as long as what they were doing was legal and it makes money, then there's no reason not to do it. You can tell that a lot of these people don't necessarily think it's right for them, but at the same time, they realize that this is just the world that they exist in, and if they don't embrace these practices, they might be left behind. You come to see how unnatural or how disconnected from real emotions the business world is, and I think it makes it hard for people to connect in general. Did you find that most of the people who came to you had to be particularly gullible or ignorant, or did you find that a range of people fell for it? A lot of people watch my show and think, "Oh, if I was in that situation, I would just laugh," or I would say, "That's absurd." But I don't really think that's the case. First, there's a lot of pressure when there are cameras around, and at the same time, given the right sales pitch, most people would agree to do stuff to save or make money. Then it just keeps escalating and escalating to the point that there's no way to bail. Do they know it's candid comedy, or do they really believe that it's sincere? That it's sincere? We try to avoid people who ask a lot of questions, and we try to find people who seem to be open to an experience outside of their day-to-day existence. We definitely don't say it's a comedy show when we book people or anything like that. As time goes on, people do get a sense that there's like something a little off about this, but also businesses become so absurd with their marketing that I was always able to justify it as something that would get attention. We walk the line between comedy and marketing. What was the pitch for the show? I initially pitched this show as me being a consumer advocate. Then we turned in a draft of that version, and I don't think it worked quite as well. It's hard when you're attacking businesses, because unless you're doing all big businesses, you don't want to say anything bad about someone's small business. I just have a hard time criticizing or punching down that way. Nathan, that guy's hilarious. Alright, I'm going to hop over. And this is an interview with Hasan Minhaj. A little excerpt from his interview with Hasan Minhaj here. He started off as a stand-up, got onto the Daily Show. He did that really dope show called, what the heck is it called? No. He did a really funny show on Netflix. I forget the name of it now, but anyway, I'm gonna hop over to part of the interview with Hasan Minhaj now. Trump got 70 million people to opt in. Sam Harris has a really interesting podcast, and he was like, to be a progressive person, you must feel a sense of shame. You must feel a shame at the history of the country, the way we treated black people through slavery and Jim Crow, the way we treated indigenous people, and a sense of shame in regards to current inequalities that exist economically, socially, and in terms of gender and sexuality. What Trump represents is the exact opposite, shamelessness. I still remember it clicked for me when I was listening to him. He goes, I'm not going to shame you about your sexual habits. I'm on my third marriage. I have sex with porn stars. I'm not going to shame you about language. I said I'll grab someone by the pussy on tape. I'm not going to shame you for being white. I am white. So Trump is shamelessness. He's all gluttony and sex and cheeseburgers. And I think there's a group of people who just feel like, don't make me feel bad for who I am. I can try to help you, but don't shame me into helping you. And I think perhaps the progressive left has taken that too far. We cannot use shame as a tactic of inspiration. When I've tried to communicate with Asian American voters in Florida, Georgia, Michigan, instead of using words like privilege, I'll use fair. And whenever you work with the local crew in New York, a lot of those Long Island guys and gals, they come from a heavily conservative base. The episodes that we did on student loan debt specifically, and when I testified before Congress on that issue, our security guards, our cameraman, our camera operators were like, man, thank you for doing that episode because it's unfair what is happening to us. The fact that we have to take these shitty loans for our children to go to school. And I realized the idea of fairness is what speaks to everybody. I've tried to break it down into these fundamental principles that hopefully will chip away at the horrible byproducts of racism in this country. Patriot Act. That was the name of that show on Netflix. It's an incredible show. Really well put together, really good. Anyway, I'm going to finish up here real quick. And you know, one more thing. The thing about Trump too and people that like follow him is not just the shamelessness, but I think like it's like the sense of someone who just has absolute confidence all the way, all the time. They never think they ever do anything wrong. They never doubt themselves. And some people tend to like that, you know, they believe in those kind of people. That's why a lot of people are famous in Hollywood. A lot of musicians look like so amazing on camera, and we just adulate them, you know, we just worship them, and they just look like I never take the wrong step, I never say the wrong thing, I'm just always on point. And so much of us are filled with so much, you know, insecurities in a way, feelings like, you know, I messed this up, I messed that up, I could have done this better. We think about that all the time, and then we see people on TV who are like, I never mess up. I never say the wrong thing. You know, I don't have to think twice about my life because I do everything perfect all the time. And it's such a ridiculous concept, but I think that's kind of part of why some people are more successful, some politicians get votes, things like that, you know. But anyway, I'm just going to end right here with a real quick quote by John Cleese, who I love, obviously. I think he's great, hilarious. This is just real quick. This is the end of what I'm going to read from Sicker in the Head by Judd Apatow. And John Cleese in here says, somebody once said, very few things matter much, and most things don't matter at all. Alright.